It's March 30th, 2023. This is Rook. Hi there, welcome to episode 251 of Rook. I'm Jian Ghomeshi. Hello to you from Toronto. Salam Dostan Aziz. Durud bar shoma. Hope you are well wherever you're tuning in from around the world. And I guess Nowruz etun Piruz still, right? We're still in the 2-week window where we celebrate New Year's.
Yes, we are.
So Persians can't just do things normally. Just have one New Year's Eve, one
celebrations.
One it's 2 weeks we have to do. So happy Nowruz still to you. Mandana Khazraei coming up. She's a great poet. She's also she's sort of a multidisciplinary artist. She's a singer. She played the santur as a kid,
wow.
Played various creative pursuits, but also an architect from the city of Kerman. Do you know anyone from Kerman?
I do. I have a friend from Kerman.
Well, it was an occasion for me to learn a bit about Kerman going into this interview because I don't know a lot of people from Kerman.
Okay.
So I wanted to learn what that city's all about. It's not a big city, and somewhere between, say, Tehran and Balochistan in the middle of Iran there. Pistachios.
I was going to say, that's the one thing I know about
And
Kerman.
drugs.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But, both of them.
Both of them, all right.
And lots of other things. It looks like a beautiful place. Anyway, Mandana came to the United States in 2009. She has been very active and outspoken during the uprising, particularly in social media, posting these beautiful poems that she writes and which she delivers and performs and does so quite emotionally, that have quite an impact. So she joins us from Washington, D.C. Before that, in the Rook studio, the surgeon and musician, and the thing is, he's great at both of them. I mean, he's an important doctor, an Iranian-German doctor. He lives in Dusseldorf, but he happens to be here in Toronto and is coming into the studio. He's a great doctor, but the guy's a monster musician. Wow. I mean, I'm going to get him to play something on the piano in here because he's just phenomenal. Dr. Pouria Sabetian. Now, he is one of these doctors who actually during COVID started to give advice online to people in Iran in Persian to help them out, because medical resources are not always as available to at least everybody in Iran outside of Tehran, etc. But also more recently, with everything from how to deal with, bullets that are being shot at you to poisoning schoolgirls, all of that. He's been giving that medical advice online to people inside Iran. And so he's kind of like Dr. K, like some of the other doctors we've had. Dr. Pouria Sabetian, he has quite a story, quite a personal story. So he'll be joining us here in the Rook studio, calling this episode Prescriptions and Poetry. Pega?
Oh, I like that.
PPP.
That's right.
Before we get to our little Rook roundup here and our guests, I wanted to mention that it's an important big birthday coming up for one of our Rook team members.
Yes, it is.
Actually, Rook itself is having a birthday. Rook turns 3 on April 16th. But before that, this weekend,
birthday.
You know whose birthday?
Very
Probably the
special
most
birthday.
important Rook team member.
I would agree.
I think. And that is little Oogie,
That's
the French
right.
bulldog. He's turning 5.
Wow.
He's turning 5. My little boy.
I still think of him as a puppy.
I know, and people meet him because he's got this frenetic little energy, and they think he's a puppy. But he's a trained therapy dog, a certified therapy dog. He's a good boy. I've had him since he was 8 weeks old.
Oh.
So, and he's been by my side the whole time, and I can't believe he's 5 years old. Anyway, for this special occasion, what am I going to get Oogie? What do you get the dog that has it all?
Something with peanut butter.
No.
No?
Close.
Okay.
Kubide.
Oh.
Oogie goes crazy. There's nothing like highly salted
Really?
grilled meat that a French bulldog goes crazy for. Yeah, he does a little dance.
Wow.
I got to take a video of when I'm giving him Kubide.
Well,
he goes
we should
crazy.
put the video on Patreon.
Oh,
Yeah.
nicely done there. For our Patreon. You know what? I will do that.
Yeah,
we'll
let's do that.
For those people who are part of, on our Patreon page, Rook members, you'll get the video. I mean, I don't know how much of a lure this is, but
it's a good,
Oogie
it'll
is
be a good
adorable.
video,
Yeah,
I'm sure.
yeah. And he, I'm very kind of stringent. I'm pretty a tough dad about what he eats. You know, the French bulldogs, Frenchies are shekamu. They'll eat everything, right? So you have to kind of be careful. And
He's got a strict diet.
He's got this fancy, you know, elite gastrointestinal organic food that we get from the vet, the kibble. But on this occasion,
it's his birthday.
He's going to get some kubide.
Yeah.
So happy birthday, Oogie, this weekend. All right. Before we get to our guests, we do our roundup here. I found out that on Monday you talked about the possibility, and I was hoping that it was just one of these nutso things that some mullah was talking about in Iran, about that, because it seems so horrific and outlandish, about a new hijab law, which suggests that not only is the regime in Iran not backing off the morality police and all the hijab laws, but they're doubling down. This was a proposal you talked about on Monday. Then it turns out this has already been enacted into law?
As of yesterday.
Okay.
So this was, when we talked about it on Monday, it was just this member of parliament by the name of Jalali who had kind of initiated this and brought it to, I guess, the table, quote unquote. And so we talked about the penalties and punishment on Monday, and we said, you know, new fines could be upwards of $60,000 in Iran's current economy, which is insane. Revoking individuals' driver's licenses, passports, bans on social media, you know, and then of course the typical expectations of you know, flogging and other fines and detainment and imprisonment and all of that. So now what happened is that this bill was actually passed in Parliament as of yesterday. So they're going to start implementing this new bill and also start using facial recognition technology as an aid to enforce this more heavily.
I wonder how this plays out, because so much is made now of the fact that women in Iran bravely but staunchly are not wearing their hijabs, especially obviously in the urban cities. We see this all the time, the videos coming out of Shiraz or Tehran or even Mashhad of, you know, walking around without hijab. So what happens? Is this doubling down going to be something that it really has an effect?
I think so, and I think, you know, they're really
You think it will have an
message.
effect?
I think so. I think they're really trying to send a message and use that fear tactic again, as usual. But I don't know if we're not where we were 7 months ago.
No.
So I don't know what's going to happen in terms of the response that we'll get. But what I will say is that the reason I say it's going to have some sort of an effect is because they're really trying to pinpoint the areas and locations in which people have been protesting. So this same MP actually mentioned this has to be enforced harshly in places that previously they were kind of more lax. And so he mentioned, you know, while people are driving in their own cars, they're going to start going into cafes and such and trying to pinpoint individuals. They're going to use that same facial recognition technology in those cafes.
So can we put to bed forever the idea that the regime is somehow going to moderate to appease global outcry or protesters in the streets? That's dead. That it is. There's one track they're on, which is terrify, you know, and impose so much fear on people, crack down that they continue their totalitarian society, and which is why everybody wants change. What else do you have in the roundup?
There's one more thing that I wanted to chat about, and this is kind of floating around in Persian Twitter. There's been some allegations made against Gugush.
Oh, yeah, right.
About this new campaign.
Gugush is perfume, not Gugush.
Well, Gugush is perfume, yes, exactly. Sorry. Might want to correct that. But yes, in regards to an ad campaign for her perfume. So in Toronto, there's a couple of billboards that depict her holding this perfume bottle. But in the background is the Azadi Tower and then the slogan of Woman Life Freedom. And so there's a lot of conversation that's circulating saying, you know, should we be using the current circumstances and profiting off of what's happening? So there's
the conversation is we shouldn't be.
Of course.
Yeah, that's what it's a big billboard. If you live in the Toronto area, you know, Yonge and Steeles is sort of the epicenter of Toronto.
Yes.
And it's a big billboard there, or it was. Did they take it down, or is it still there? I
think it's still there.
Okay, all right. And so it uses Gugush's image and selling this perfume and has this is part of the revolution, women
Yeah,
like
I
freedom.
think there's, and I don't know how accurate this is because I can't remember seeing this on the billboard, but someone was saying like they had advertised or written like the scent of strength or something like that as well, which I thought, that's just awful if that is in fact up there, but it definitely raises some questions. But I think Ghomeshi actually came out and she made a statement and said that, I in no way, shape, or form did I endorse this or did I know
disavowed
that.
it. Yeah, correctly. But it raises a broader questions around, because we are seeing this in different ways as this revolution continues, and it's always been an issue, even over the last 6 months, of how much do we allow this to be commodified and appropriated for sales and advertising and marketing and all of that. And this isn't something that's only unique to the or specific to this revolution and this Iranian community. I was knowing that we might talk about this, I was doing a quick search of how revolutions or social causes have been appropriated in other ways. Some of them very famously so or easily so. Others. So I was finding, for example, Ben and Jerry's ice cream did a flavor called Empowerment. Empowerment, yeah. That this is just a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, that was seen to be promoting the causes of the Democrat Party in America. It was about a couple of specific laws. So selling ice cream on the basis of there's a black-owned makeup company called Beauty Bakery that had a Juneteenth special. So this is that Juneteenth is short for the day that slavery was abolished in America, June 19th, 1865. So they were selling makeup through promoting Juneteenth, right? And you think about all the businesses that ally themselves with, say, Pride Month.
I was just going to say that,
or breast cancer awareness, or even Ukraine to sell their products, right? You come to our bank because we support Pride
Ukraine,
Month, or Ukraine. So this is an ongoing ethical issue and a moral issue, and I mean, I sometimes the things that are being sold have something to do with the revolution, I suppose, or can be helpful. I'm not sure if perfume falls into that category.
Yeah, I don't know about that either.
So it's natural that people took umbrage, and I don't know what the real story is there. I'm assuming Ghomeshi didn't know about this and didn't want to.
Well, I mean, she's made that statement, and I don't even know if the individuals who. I don't know about the slogan, but the background, the Azadi Tower, I don't know. I mean, we've seen in Iranian newspapers and things like that for years and years that, there's people standing in front of a background of the Azadi Tower or some other place in Iran and things like that. So I don't know about that, but I definitely have a problem with the slogan on there now.
Sorry, what was you think that we shouldn't be using the Azadi Tower?
No, I'm saying the Azadi Tower is something that's been
made on a
used that has been used for years. I mean, like if you open up the Persian newspaper, there's so many.
That's short form for Iran.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Or Tehran.
So that I don't know if I have that much of a problem with.
No, it was that they were using the slogan.
Yeah, exactly. That I definitely think is an issue.
If you support the revolution, you should smell like this.
Like Ghomeshi.
Yeah, this perfume. We're coming to you on rookmedia.com. It's there that you can link to all of our platforms. On an ongoing mission to build a new audiovisual encyclopedia of Iranian diaspora identity. We are on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Instagram, and CastBox. If you want to see some visuals with Rook, switch over to YouTube. If you like your Rook descriptions and bulletins in English and in Persian, you can check us out on Telegram. So we're on all those platforms. Now, the main one is our website, rookmedia.com, where you can link to all of those, but also to a way to support us and become part of our team here or become a Rook member. This is through Patreon. We have a Patreon page you link to through the rookmedia.com website. You just press the Support Us button, and you can become a Rook member at a bronze, silver, or gold level. And it's a monthly little fee that helps us crowdsource what we're doing here, which is basically, it's not for profit. It's just to stay alive. And so I wanted to give a shout out to Siavash Asif. who is a new silver patron.
Yes, thank you, Siavash.
Thank you, Siavash. And thank you to those of you who are regular. If you're a regular listener or a regular member of our Rook community and enjoy what we do, it means a lot to us to become part of our Patreon team. So just go and press the support us button and you get special treats like our newsletter, which we won't bombard your email inbox with, but once a month you'll get some special offers and special invites to certain events as well.
And for anyone who's seen our latest newsletter, if you have any feedback, feel free to reach out to us. Let us know what you liked.
What did we say at the beginning of that the Patreon members get something? What'd you say? The video of Oogie.
Yes, the video of
Oogie in Inkubide.
That's right.
Seldom has there been more of a pitch, a better way to lure people to our Patreon page. Thank you, Pega.
Thank you.
I'm very excited so you just let our guest in here. Our first guest today is walking into the studio, an Iranian-German doctor, musician, popular social media presence. Dr. Pouria Sabetian is a vascular and endovascular surgeon who gained thousands of followers for his informative videos about COVID-19 during the pandemic. He also happens to be a brilliant musician who plays various instruments. Pouria was born and raised in Tehran. He moved to Germany to continue his medical education in 2012. He's the director of the Start Med company with the mission to recruiting healthcare professionals from other countries to Germany. Since the beginning of the uprising, Pouria has been producing supportive content and offering critical medical advice to help protesters and those inside Iran. He's also been on tour as a musician here in Canada recently. And so, right now, Dr. Pouria Sabetyan joins me in the Rook studio. Hello, sir.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this program. I love your show, man. It is really nice to be here. And I think I should apologize because of my language. My first foreign language is German, actually.
This is your first interview ever in English.
It is correct.
Do you know the first major interview that Farmaz Aslani ever did in English was on this show? So you're in good company.
Yeah.
But your English is excellent. I don't know why
you. Thank you so much. I will try my best. I can speak German actually native, and Farsi.
It won't help me if you answer in German because I won't understand what you're saying.
Okay.
But I understand you are fluent in Farsi and in German, and you learned German in 6 months when you arrived there in 2012 is the story. So do you just have a facility for languages, or are you literally good at everything? Because that certainly seems to be the case with medicine and music.
It's a good question. I don't know, but I am a perfectionist. And if I learn something, I will try to be the best on it. If I drive, I will try to be. If I cook, I will try to be the best one in that.
But isn't it ultimately a prescription for disappointment? Because you can't be the best at everything, right? I mean, are you the best cook?
No, absolutely
but
not.
I can tell you're pretty good, aren't you?
I can cook.
What is your best dish?
It is relative. It's relative. It makes your life a little bit difficult because you're always put more energy to be the best and take more time to be the best, and sometimes you don't have really good private life. You're always undoing, learning. The life goes on.
You always want to be the best in your private life too.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Where does that perfectionism come from, Pouria? From your dad?
I think it's from my dad, and also from my mom. But my mom passed away 27 years ago. I was 14 years old at that time. I was not able to know my mother as well as my father. But I think the perfectionism comes from my father. I can remember
your father, who, by the way, is also a doctor.
Yeah,
right? As is your brother. You're all friggin' doctors. Everybody's a doctor.
We are really a boring family,
You're with us. You have the Iranian status overachiever ticked. All of the boxes ticked. Yeah.
Our topics are also always medical topics in a family. It's really boring.
Sorry, you were going to say something about your dad and perfectionism. Did I cut you off?
Yeah, my dad. I was a medical doctor. On my promotion as a doctor, and to give my doctor work and my thesis, and I've invited my father to my this ceremony at that time, and he goes like, "What? You're a medical doctor? Okay, it's another big deal. You're a medical doctor. You did another big work or a great thing. You should be the best specialist in the world, and then we can go and celebrate your
Right.
success." That was his achievement in this context.
I had this with my dad too. I mean, I would anything that I would, Dad, I just got a new contract as the host of this on this network, and he would say. He learned after a while that he had to lead with positive affirmation. So
Okay.
he would say, "That is great, but Pouria, he is surgeon," and it was always like somebody who's better.
Someone's better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people were. So there you go. I want to get into your dual life as a surgeon and a monster musician. I mean, you're not just
thank you
a
so
musician; you're a great musician. But let me ask you first about the uprising. In the immediate days, Pouria, after Mahsa Amini had been killed back in September of 2022. You jumped into making videos in order to give medical and health advice to those on the ground in Iran. Did you have a sense that this was going to be as major a revolution as it turned out to be?
Actually, I didn't. But I think my goal was in every moment in my life to help other people. And in COVID time, I had many of videos to help them, many new studies, new articles to give them some useful information about that. And in this context, after Mahsa Amini's died, that was, I was really sad, and I thought, okay, how can I help them? I'm in Germany. They are on the street. They are under a lot of pressure in their lives, economic pressure and political pressure, and what can I do? And I thought, okay, the best thing that I do is medicine, and I've tried to give them some more information what they should do in this situation, in some critical situation, and that was the reason of all those videos.
Right. When you give medical advice, I mean, on the one hand, especially with Iranians, I find they defer to a doctor. So if you're just having doctor in your name, people trust you and believe in you, and that's a positive thing, I would think. On the other hand, it does come with responsibility. You're not just somebody giving your opinions. You're somebody who is giving opinions that are going to affect potentially people's lives. How do you weigh that kind of responsibility?
Yeah, in a hard way. It is not really easy, because some people you don't know what they people are. They can be from the government. They can be, in social media. You're not able to know them, although you're trying to help them. But it is kind of, you're on the border. It is really difficult to know. But the fact is, you can give some consultation in your field, and you should be always be careful what you say in social media, because they can use it against you. And at that time, I was really
who will use it against you?
the just regular normal people,
Right.
everybody, they can use against you. They can record it. They can take some screenshots. They can, in social media, they can do everything, and you should be careful. And I was really under pressure because of my family in Iran, and I thought, okay, I would like to help people in Iran, but if the government put my family under pressure and take them or do some critical things to them, it should be really dangerous for us. Despite, I did it. My father was not really agree with that, because he's in Iran and he was really under pressure from every person in around him.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Has he heard from Sepa or the Basij or anybody saying, are you the father of this guy? Why is he making these videos?
I think so.
Uh-huh.
Because he was, in 2 weeks after that videos makes him really nervous.
Mm-hmm.
And he called me and told me, stop it, do not do it. And I thought, okay, what's the matter? What's wrong? He didn't say anything, but I think he was under pressure.
And by the way, it goes without saying that you can't go back to Iran now, I would imagine.
I cannot go back to Iran.
And how hard is that for you?
It is really difficult for me in my head. I love Iran. Part of my heart is in Iran. And I don't know, it's really weird. It's my country, it's my homeland. I'm raised in Iran, and I'm out since I was 30. And 30 years in Iran, I've learned everything in Iran. And, my memories, my friends, my family, and it's really hard for me. But, the goal and the future makes me strong.
Let me just ask you a couple more questions about the current moment in Iran. What, over the last 6 or 7 months, as a doctor now, what have you been most concerned by, or what hits you the hardest as a doctor watching what's been happening in Iran?
The situation of my colleagues in Iran, that was really hard for me. A purpose of a doctor is always helping other people, and they were not able to do that because of the government. Because of the government, they were always in the hospital. The security guys, Basij, Sipa, they were always in the hospital. And I've called some of my colleagues, some of my friends in the hospital in Iran, and they were always under massive pressure in the hospital, and they were not able to help people as always. And that was a big deal for them. And Aida Rostami, she was helping these injured people in the revolution at their homes, and they killed her. That she died because of this purpose,
simply doing her job as a doctor,
doing her job as a doctor.
And a lot of doctors we've now hear have left Iran in the last 6 or 7 months, just fed up. They can't do what they.
That's correct.
That is it's devastating. It's devastating to hear at a time when that medical care is so profoundly important that doctors are placed in the position of not being able to give. I mean, we've heard so many of these stories of, and even when they bring somebody in, the doctor helps them go out the back door so that the protester doesn't then get arrested. I mean, it's a very difficult situation. I have to imagine that you probably, because you have a large following now, you probably hear from people on the ground in Iran who are asking you questions that are not always your specialty, right? My daughter's been poisoned from a chemical attack as a schoolgirl. What do I do? How do you respond to them when they come to you with questions like that?
Yeah, as a medical doctor, I know many things about that, but I cannot know everything about that, and I should learn my size. I should take my books, take my online courses, and I should learn by myself to help them actually. But it's actually normal, in Iranian community you have always so many questions from other people. If I go to the party, some guy comes to me and asks some question about medical situations. It's not always in my specialty as a vascular surgeon, but as a medical doctor, I can help him.
Can I just ask what it means to be an endovascular surgeon? What does that actually mean?
Did you heard about balloon stent graft or something like that? It is actually the techniques of non-invasive surgery to make the circulation better in vessel area, in arteries, in some special disease, in arterial disease, in venous disease, and you can use endovascular techniques to put some balloon or some, if you have narrowing or aneurysm in arteries or circulation system, vessel system, vascular
Specifically
system.
to do with the heart, mostly, right?
Not specifically
No?
with the heart.
Oh.
Aorta, main artery in abdomen, in legs, arms,
I see.
neck, arteries. You can do it almost in every vascular systems in the body.
My dear late father died because they were trying to they want to move one of the stents, which had become a couple of the arteries had become clogged again after he had, and they did this non-invasive surgery to kind of move the stent, and they blocked it further, unfortunately, and so he ended up a couple of weeks later dying. He had just gone in for day surgery, so these are the perils. I'm familiar with the perils of the kind of job that you do, and it can't be easy.
Yeah, it can be easy, and every procedures in medicine can have some complications, and the people should know about that. That it is a big problem in Iran because nobody talks about complications of procedures.
They don't make you sign that thing that says you have a 10% chance.
Sure.
That
They make the sign. They should sign that papers, but nobody tell them about every complications that can happen after the operation or during the operation. It is a big problem in Iran, and it is. I think it is a cultural problem. You cannot say to somebody in Iran, you have cancer. But if you tell them just directly you have cancer, it's not really good.
Like it's zesht. It's not culturally appropriate.
It's culturally a big problem because they don't want to hear.
But that is your job as a doctor to tell them.
It's your job as a doctor to.
So what do you do?
You should. In Iran is a little bit different as in Germany. In Germany you should talk directly with the patient about the problem, but in Iran you should talk first of all with the family, and they should prepare the person. That you should. It is a process to tell them. It is really difficult.
We're very sensitive people, Iranians, aren't we?
It is
compared to Germans, I would imagine.
Absolutely, the Germans.
I was going to say it's a stereotype, but apparently it's
Germans. Some about sensitive people in German. It's not a really common word in German.
Take me back to you were born right after the Islamic Revolution. You were born in the early 1980s, and so you're a kid during the Iran-Iraq War. What was your childhood like? Somebody who now seems so incredibly talented in these different areas and pretty confident, albeit a perfectionist. Was that always true? If somebody met the 5-year-old Pouria, would it be obvious that he's going to become Dr. Sabetian and a great musician and all of that?
No, that was not the case. I was 8 years old after the war, and that was the idea from my mother to be a musician, also be a piano player, because she thought, if you don't have any education, if you don't have any academic level in your life, and if you don't have any situation to make money, you're a musician. You can play piano, you can play in a cafe or something like that, and you can make some money.
Your mom was so roche-en-fête.
Yeah,
because it's actually the opposite. Usually they say, what good is being a musician? You need to go and get a degree in something that you can turn into a job, right?
Yeah, that was my mother's idea.
Wow.
And she was really, she was really serious in this context. Yeah.
Did she know that you had a gift for playing music?
No. My brother has played piano, but just as a hobby in his free time, at a summer course or something like that. But for me, that was music was a big compensation in my life, always. And I wrote my first song 7 days after my mother died. That was I was 14, and I have started to work as a composer 7 days after she died.
Did you guys have a piano at home?
Yeah,
That helped.
that helped.
Because I was when Maziar Falahi was here, I was asking him too. That's a very sensitive period. That period of the 80s and 90s in Iran. Not only is there music not being allowed to be played on the radio and all of these things, especially in the 80s, but any kind of music. But there's not a lot of instruments around too. You've become this multi-instrumentalist. I mean, you play the piano, but you also play a number of other instruments.
Yeah.
How did that happen? How did you find all of those instruments and become that guy?
Yeah, if you play piano, you can play, if you want, you can play other instruments too. Because you learn them. I think it is my opinion that can be actually false.
You're
but
offending me as a drummer right now. You think that because you play piano, you can be a good drummer?
Yeah, you can. Because you know the rhythm, you know actually the notes, you know the music. You have bass tones, high tones. You have everything on piano. You can imagine everything. You can learn actually more faster other instruments.
So interesting. So you play the DAF, for example, right?
DAF, I can play.
You
DAF
learn to
also.
play. You think you're better at the DAF because you're a great piano player.
I think so.
That's so interesting.
I think so. Piano helps me in all other instruments to have a good imagination. How could be as a guitar player, or I can imagine when I play guitar, I can imagine how can I play it actually on piano, and how can I convert it from piano to guitar, and surely you should put some guitar technique if you play guitar, but basically the music is music.
It's so interesting to hear you talk about the inspiration for going into music being your mother, because from what I understand, you going into medicine was also related to your mother, right?
It's correct.
Can you tell that story?
Yeah, I was 14 years old, and my mother asked me, okay, your brother is in the medical university. What would you like to be? What would you like to do? And at that time, I've seen my mother. She was so happy because of my brother. He was successful in medical university, and I saw that. And I told her, okay, what do you think? Should I be another medical doctor in our family? And she was really proud, and she told me, yeah, it is my last wish in my life that you become a medical doctor. And I promised her, and I think 2 weeks later, my mother died in that horrible accident. My mother fell down from the 5th floor in an elevator shaft, and that was a big disaster in my life. But I promised her, and now I'm a medical doctor.
Mm-hmm. Well, what was your mom like?
She was pretty. She was so kind. She was a big supporter of us, my brother, and my father. At the age 42, I am right now 41 years old, and my mother was 42 as she died. And the life is really that changed my life at the moment as a teenager.
How did it? It's an obvious question. I'm a 14-year-old, and your mom dies in a horrible accident. It's not even something that you anticipated. She wasn't sick for years. There's not some. It's an obvious question to say how how did it change you?
I think I became a better person after that. I think because in my head, um, I sh- I've I've tried all the time to prove myself, to prove my mother, hey, you're not here, but you can see me. Um, I'm trying to be the better person. I'm trying to be the good person, and I'm trying to be the person who you like. And I think that changed my life, and um, I was able to be the better person because in my head, everything was other than a regular life of some teenager.
What was it like? You become suddenly a nuclear family, a small family of men, boys. Your dad and two boys. Once your mom is gone, how did that dynamic shift?
That was really difficult. My father was always at work until 11 p.m. He was not at home because my mother was there, and he was able to do his work, his job as a gynecologist. He was always in his praxis or in the hospital, in operation room. But after that, he has tried to be at home at 8 p.m. But he didn't know uh, what 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 to do is. He was actually confused, and I was confused. My brother was actually not so confused because he was in a medical university.
He's older.
He's older. He's 4 years older, and he had so many friends around him. He had so many plans, so many parties. So many, as a young student in a medical university, you have so many plans to do, and it is actually a little bit easier in this situation. But I had some conflicts in my life because I didn't know how can I cook, how can I eat, how can I my mother did everything for us, and at some point everything was so empty.
Your dad's at work, your brother's at the medical university,
and I was
14-year-old Pouria is at home.
Yeah, that was I was not at home every day. I should go to school, but that was really, I don't want to be in at that time again. I don't want to be there.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
You leave Iran at an interesting time because you don't leave Iran until 2012, so you're about 31 years old.
30 years old.
And that's interesting because if you're going to leave and you're going to leave for education, you could leave when you're 21. You clearly wanted to stay or decided to stay until 30. Why did you stay as long as you did, and then why did you leave when you were 30?
That was not the plan to immigrate from this country to other countries. I had everything in Iran, part of a hospital praxis, my apartment in Iran, 200-meter apartments in one of the best part of Tehran, and my friends around me, everything. And I was at that time one of the composers in broadcast in TV in Iran, and the job was actually good. I had so many job requests in as a musician, as a composer. That was really good for me. I could make money, but the problem was after my military service as a medical doctor, it is a big exam in Iran. If you want to be a specialist as a surgeon or something like, if you want to be a surgeon in Iran, you should take a big exam once a year in Iran, and it is a really hard exam. You should learn every specialties in medicine, and I have decided to do it to be a surgeon, not just general practitioner, but a surgeon. That time, I've canceled every contract, every musical contract. I was at home for 6 months. I have turned my phone off, and everything was stopped in my life because I should have do the exam and pass it. But after the exam, they told us from the health ministerium the questions and the answers of this examination was away to other people. I mean, they sold it to other people. They sold the questions and the answers of this exam to 2,000 medical doctors to give them the possibility to be in a specialist.
Wow.
That was a big money in this corruption, in this really bad.
And you were
business.
surprised by that?
I was really surprised. I was really surprised after that, and I've decided to come out and to go away from this country, because just one more year in this situation and learn everything 14 hours a day and stop everything in my life. I lost my girlfriend. I lost everything. Everything in my life was stopped, and I thought, okay, if I do one more time, and if they take one more year from my life, I cannot tolerate it.
It's been such a, this Iran, it's such a dysfunctional country, especially in the last 4 decades. And I have to always say a disclaimer first when I say something like this, because obviously we know there's so much that's beautiful about it. There's so much that we love, and there's so much to celebrate about Iran. But on so many levels, it becomes a frustration, whether we're talking about human rights and a lot of things that the uprising is about.
Yeah.
But this level of corruption, for example, it's infuriating. Of course you and so you face the choice of either staying and basically becoming part of that system, or leaving the country that you love and your family and friends.
Yeah, it's correct. They do it right now. It is the problem of this country. They cannot stop this corruption. They do it. They make you so disappointed. And if you have the problem is, if you have enough money right now, if you have the situation to leave the country, you will make it. You will do it, because they want to. They want that you leave the country. Every academic person who can bring some good situation in this country, who can build this country.
They want you to leave.
They want it. Because they can.
Easier to manipulate people who are.
It is correct.
Less accomplished and talented and smart.
It's the point, because if you are clever, if you're smart, you should be there.
It's devastating.
And
that's horrible. What was the move to Germany like for you? I mean, you seem to have done very well in Germany. Was it invigorating to change your life and be in Germany, or was it difficult in terms of, for the first time, living in a new country?
That was really difficult. That was a new world for me. I've seen every English language countries like America, Canada, England, Australia, and I should have do another examinations, like in America is USMLE, or in Canada is Toronto Notes, and or other examinations. But in Germany, I should have just B2 language level of German, and an acceptation from a head of a department in a surgery, and I was able to move to Germany, and that was the point. I thought, okay, it's my chance. And 2014 was the regulation in Germany absolutely other than 2012. After 2 years, that was my chance, and I took it. I've learned the language. I had a acceptation. I had an acceptation from a head of the vascular surgery department in Bremen. That was in North Germany, and after a year, I was there.
And now you're in Düsseldorf.
Now I'm in Düsseldorf.
How do you self-identify now? Are you German?
I am actually German who talks Farsi too.
But it's interesting because in your social media, you seem to be more focused on an Iranian audience than on a
That's
German
correct.
audience
It's
or
correct.
even an English audience.
It's correct, but because they need me, I think more than Germans. It's because of my specialty in medicine. I think I have actually 2 pages. One of them is German. One of them is Farsi, but the Farsi page is more active as the German one than the German one. I think the people in Iran needs me as a medical doctor. I should give them my information, my education, my experience, and it's really embarrassing because so many people text me. We don't have our doctor, our family doctor doesn't tell us every information that we need, and it is the reason why we're writing you.
Right.
And I think, okay, why though? Because in Iran, the medical doctors in Iran are really under pressure. They have so much to do. They have no time to do, no time to talk with patients. It's a big problem. It's a problem of infrastructure in this country. It is from health ministerium in this country. It's not about the doctors. They are really good. They are really. I think the Iranian doctors are the best doctors in the world, because they don't have any possibilities, any devices, any instruments, any. They are
right.
But they are a good.
They're
doctor.
improvising while they're
improvising.
Yeah.
They're good doctors.
Tell me about where and how I mean, you basically came to public attention. You became famous in a way through the videos you started making during COVID, during the pandemic.
That's correct.
What was the first initiative in terms of doing that? When did you go, Eureka, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to start making these videos that will help. I'm assuming you didn't know it was going to go viral or what you were doing, but tell me about the idea behind it.
That was really funny because I was actually in work with WDR in Germany. It is a big program in Germany, a big channel in Germany, WDR Germany, and as a musician, and I was musically really active in this program. And after COVID, they called me and they told me, musical, we don't want something from you, but medical, can you can you give us some medical programs?
Right.
Can you give us some medical programs in German and something like that? And I thought, oh, why not? I can do it.
Wow.
And that was the start in this context. But after that, I was on BBC Persia because they watched my programs on WDR. And they've called them. Okay, what's with this guy? He is a Persian guy, and he talks about COVID or something like that in German. Can he talk about COVID also in Farsi or something like that? And they told me, okay, BBC Persia wants to have interview with you. I was in BBC Persia for a while, and after that I was in Manoto TV. It's one of the most famous Persian channels in the world.
Yes.
And I think.
And then you start making the videos because it's a natural outgrowth.
Making the videos, everything, social media, and I thought, okay, it should be because the people need some more information.
You are a performer, though. I think when I watch your videos, I mean, first of all, there's some that are just funny stuff. It's not all.
Yeah.
But you seem not just comfortable in front of the camera. You seem you seem to enjoy it. It's something that comes naturally to you, or you're kind of a performer?
I think it comes from music. I was always on the stage. So many concerts in Iran, over 100 concerts in Iran. I can imagine myself from on the stage for many thousands people and perform music and something like that. And camera is another big deal for me.
It suggests an interesting duality in terms of who you are, because I've come to know doctors who I have tremendous respect for to be quite to the point, serious in some cases, but not overly sensitive. I mean, part of the training is you can't get too emotional. You're overseeing people losing their lives in some cases. You can't, cry for days about each one of them. You have to do a job, etc. And then an artist is kind of a good artist needs to tap into that emotional well and be as sensitive as possible. And so you've got both of these things, which by the way may coincide with the German and the Iranian, the stereotypes of which are the very emotionless,
emotionless and emotional,
and emotional. Yeah. So, are you a combination of those things?
Yeah, our human's ability is not. There is no limitation, I think, and it comes from as a as a vascular surgeon, one of your duties are the amputations. I've performed more than 2,500 amputations in my life. And so many people told me, how can you amputate a part of a body?
Yeah.
It is really, weird or something like that. But in my head is, if I amputate a sick part of a body, it really, I don't know how can I say it in English without any medical words, but do you know what necrosis is? What gangrene? What gangrene?
Gangrene,
is?
sure.
Gangrene, sure.
Like a diseased part of a body.
Yeah, a disease of a part of a body, and you try to help them. They are suffering under these sickness or this disease, and you amputate this part of a body, but they have better life after that. And it is my intention, I perform an amputation, but I can improve their life quality. It is in my head. I think about life quality. And I think, okay, I can help them.
But it's about you, especially as a surgeon, it's about precision, right?
Yeah.
You have to get it exactly right.
Yeah.
Art, music isn't always about precision.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you're too into the precision, it actually undermines the art.
Yeah, art is something else.
Is there a way in which being a doctor, because I feel like being a musician helps you be a doctor, it can bring an empathy, again, art always helps develop the sensitivity of a person, whatever. Is there a way in which being a doctor makes you a better musician?
No, I don't think so. I think music makes me a better doctor, but medicine makes me not a better musician. I can use my my two part of my brain, the left part and the right side of my brain, actually at the same time. It helps me to be multitasking. As a musician, I'm focused on a beauty of my, it is so emotional, but as a medical doctor, it's also emotional, but in a different way. It is. I think about helping people make their lives better, and life quality, health, and it is something else. But in music, you have their souls in your hand.
Pouria, do you ever regret trying to do both of these things?
No.
I mean, Iranian overachievement medals aside, which is great. But I told you this before we did the interview. But you're not just a musician. I mean, you're a great musician. Anybody who watches you knows that you're phenomenal. So if you're not spending as much time doing surgery and being an important doctor and all of that, you could be putting out albums and touring constantly and building that music career, or vice versa.
Yeah.
You know, okay, music is just going to be a hobby, and I'll put it over here, and I'll become this star surgeon. Do you ever feel like, especially given the perfectionist that you are, that, man, I should have just picked one lane, or at this point I should pivot to just do one thing?
You know, I would like to be the Pouria who is here. I can do both of them, and I think the reason why I'm here today with you is actually the music.
That's true. Yeah.
But because there is so many medical doctors, so many surgeons, but especially
Not as Khoshtip.
yeah, but you know, not as Khoshtip. Yeah, Khoshtip means good looking.
Yes, thank you.
My dear, my
Tell the Germans what it means now too. Yeah.
yeah, not as Khoshtip, charmant, no, in German. But the problem, you know, it is a big deal, because if you want to be a professional musician, it takes so much energy from you, so much time, so much power in your life. And also, if you want to be a good surgeon, it takes also. That's why I cannot sleep more than 4 hours a day. That's why I'm always.
You sleep 4 hours?
4 hours.
Wouldn't a doctor tell you that that's a bad idea?
It's really bad idea.
Oh.
It's really
Thank you,
unhealthy.
Dr. Sabetian.
It's really bad idea. It's really unhealthy.
It's impressive that you do all that you do. I'm very grateful that you're here. I'm grateful that we got to do this
Thank
in
you
person.
so much.
And I'm also grateful because we have a keyboard in our studio.
Oh.
And you've agreed to play something.
Yeah, sure.
And and what will you play for us? If I had a medical room here, I would get you to do some surgery for us as well. Yeah. But we don't have that. We just have a keyboard. So
yeah, we just have keyboard. I can play some original songs if you like.
Please.
You know, it is really special to me. It is a melody from my mother, and it is in 7/8. It is not a regular rhythmus in the music. The piano players I've seen. Only Yanni plays so many melodies in 7/8, and I wrote this melody in 7/8 also. I can play a part of that.
Beautiful. Thank you again for this interview. Thank you so much.
I'm really grateful to be here. I'm so sorry because of my language. I can say everything in Farsi so fluently, but not in English.
The next interview we do will be in German. I will learn some German.
My pleasure.
So you're comfortable.
Yeah.
Dr. Pouria Sabetyan is here in the Rook studio. Merci. Thank you so much. Head on over to the keyboard there, and we'll listen to you play this piece for his mother, Dr. Pouria Sabetyan. He's walking over there now. Nicely done. Dr. Pouria Sabetian in the Rook studio live. Thank you so much. Great to have you here. Come back. This is Rook, episode 251, Prescriptions and Poetry. My next guest is a female Iranian-American multidisciplinary artist who is an architect, a poet, and a most compelling singer. Take a listen to this.
شکفته بهارون گل سرخ خورشید باز اومد و شب شد گریزون آه گل سرخ خورشید باز اومد و شب شد گریزون کوها لاله زارم لاله ها بیدارم تو کوها دارن گل
Taste of the song Sad Omad Zemestun, as performed recently on VOA with Ehsan Karami, Mandana Khazraei. Mandana was born and raised in Kerman in an artistic family. She moved to Tehran to continue her education at the age of 18, where she started her first vocal lessons under the supervision of one of Iran's best female singers, Hengame Akhavan. That was in Tehran. Mandana moved to the United States in 2009. She currently lives in Washington, D.C. and works as a project manager in an architectural firm alongside her music career. She has been very active since the beginning of the uprising after the killing of Mahsa Amini, writing poems, posting powerful and emotional videos in her social media pages, and speaking and performing at various rallies and events. And right now, Mandana Khazraei joins me from Washington, D.C. today. Hello.
Hi, Jian. How are you?
It's a great pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you.
That song is so beautiful. I wanted to play it partly because I just love it so much. Sadomad Zemestun. It basically means it's the end of winter coming. It's based on an old Armenian folk song, and it's a revolutionary song that was used during the 2009 Green Movement as well in Iran. Tell me about choosing to perform that on VOA.
Yeah, and I was thinking, since they invited me and they asked me to sing a song, I was thinking, since it has a meaning of ending the winter and ending the bad days, these cold days. So I was thinking this is a good song to sing. So that's why I chose that song. And this song is very older than that movement that you just mentioned. Is I think 40 something years old song. And it belongs to communism parties, communism opposition. But since it's just people kept singing it over so many stuff happening in Iran, I don't think it belongs to them anymore. I think it belongs to all Iranian, all people who wants freedom, who wants to be this long winter end soon.
Yes, it's been rehabilitated a few times. It was this Armenian folk song that it was used during the Siakal uprising, yep. But you're right. It's now this revolutionary song. I mean, just in terms of the content of it, and to get into talking about what the last 6 months have been like, do you believe we are seeing the end of winter, both literally and metaphorically, in Iran?
Yeah, of course I see that, because in my perspective, Iranian practicing unity, practicing how to be together, how to get together in against of this brutal regime. And I think this is the most important part of this revolution. And to me, the winter is going to be end soon, and the spring is coming very soon, since all the young people, brave young generation, are in the streets. they're fighting for their freedom, and this hope, this all of this stuff giving me so many hope to think that this winter is going to end soon.
I've heard you talk about the hope you feel, and I think a lot of us have felt that hope or grasping to it. There's also been a lot of devastation, and you've felt that. I mean, you've posted some beautiful poems where we see you crying while performing them. Talk to me about the mixed emotions you've been feeling over the last 6 or 7 months.
Yeah, as you said, it's a mixed emotion, you know. So of course, when some young people, even kids, get murdered by this the force of the regime, it's heartbroken. And since I have a kid myself, and my kid is 13 years old, so I can put myself in their position, and I can feel the mom or the family or the father's feeling about it, and it breaks my heart deeply. But at the same time, I was thinking, we cannot just cry and do nothing, and we have to keep fighting.
You're not just a performer. You're a writer, and actually, before we did the interview, you were saying that you partly wish we were doing this in Persian, because I know you're very poetic and eloquent in Persian. Although you're so good in English that I couldn't pass up the opportunity to have an interview out there with you in English. But you are a poet, both in terms of performance and writing. And you wrote in the end of November. You posted such a beautiful poem, or a song, I suppose, about the death of little Kian Pirfalak. This is the 10-year-old boy who died at the hands of the regime, the bullets when he was in the car. And the poem translates into, "Hey neighbor, pass us ice," this being a reference to ice that was used by his family to preserve his dead body while they were desperately finding a place to bury him and not hand him over to authorities. Tell me about that poem.
You know, when I was writing this poem, I was crying myself. And even since then, I'm thinking the first place that I'm going to go after Iran become a free country, I'm going to go to Kian Pirfalak. And anytime I'm thinking of him, I'm thinking about him, thinking about all of them, their families, I cannot stop crying. I cannot stop crying. And since, as you said, I'm a writer, I have to write my feeling. I have to write them. I must write them. Otherwise, I'm gonna die. You know, I'm gonna choke. So I was decided to write this situation and imagine someone killed some system, kill your kid, and even you're killed. You're with blood is in front of you. You cannot even go to hospital or somewhere else to ask for help, because if you do that, they're going to steal the body and won't let you to bury in order that you want, in a way you want. So the only way that you can keep the body, I mean, not smelling, or you know, you can bury the way that you want, is to ask ice from neighbors, because you don't have enough ice. And this was so touching, and it was so sad.
Yeah, there's videos of them putting the ice on his body in the hours after he died. Do you want to do any of that poem? Can you do a couple of lines from it in Persian?
Sure. آی همسایه به ما یخ برسان، آی همسایه به ما یخ برسان، نعش فرزند به دستم مانده، طفل معصوم مرا تیر زدن، داده دستور ترور فرمانده. آی همسایه به ما یخ برسان، قلب دردانه من مانده ز کار، رفته لبخند ز لبهای ترش، جای ترکش به تنش جا مانده. آی همسایه به ما یخ برسان، تا سپاریم تن خونی فرزند به خاک، گاه گاهی بشود مویه کنیم سر قبری که از او جا مانده.
It's a beautiful piece. It's a powerful piece, and you know, you're quite open about showing your emotions on video. in social media. I mean, some people would feel a little bit more, I don't know, shy or have reservations about putting themselves out there the way you do. That one in particular, when you posted in November, you're actually crying as you perform it. Was that a decision that you made recently, or have you always been that way?
No, I've been always like this. Always. If you go back to my previous Instagram post, I have a poem about Pouria Mokhtari, the boy who got killed in Aban.
Yes.
Or even I have a poem about women. I mean, long time ago, about hijab, about this forced hijab. So no, this is not something recently happened to me. I've been like this as much as I remember.
Mandana, do you worry that things are not progressing? I feel trepidatious about even asking questions like this, because I don't want to suggest that there isn't the will for there to be a change in Iran. But do you worry that things are not progressing as fast as some had hoped, as many of us hoped back in October or November?
Do you know, I don't know how fast this is stuff gonna happen, but there is no way that this revolution is not gonna win. I'm sure 100% that this woman life freedom revolution going to win, because of this young brave generation who is not frightened of this regime anymore. And there are a lot of different ways to fight back. And I think people are keep creating new ways for fighting, and they'll keep doing it. And I'm sure it's gonna get somewhere.
You were born and raised in Kerman. In fact, you were born just as the other revolution, the Islamic Revolution, 1980, was establishing itself. You were born into an artistic family, from what I understand. Your father sang, your mother played tar. How would you describe your life in Iran, growing up in Kerman in the 1980s, with the backdrop of the Iran-Iraq War, but in this sort of artistic and musical family?
I was so lucky to born in this family that I was born. My father and my mom, they were very artistic, and they were very cultured, and they love art, music. So even though in those days, I remember, as you said, there was a war between Iran and Iraq, and so I was growing up in a small town, which was a Kerman. My father was a lawyer, but even though everything was so crazy those days, even though the music was kind of forbidden in Iran, even now they still doesn't show the instrument in the TV.
Right.
But on that environment, I can say every single weekend there was a gathering in our house playing music, all music. My father invited musicians.
You were playing the santur when you were a kid?
I used to play santur.
And you started writing poems when you were a child. I mean, it's interesting. That's really not a normal thing for kids in the West to do. You don't meet a lot of kids who are 6 years old who are writing poetry in Canada or the United States necessarily. Maybe that's different in Iran because of the poetic tradition. Tell me what drew you to poetry at such a young age.
The most important thing was my family. Again, my father was wrote a poem as well. My grandfather wrote a poem as well. And I remember the first poem that I wrote, I was at second grade.
Wow.
And, and so again, my family were always supporting me.
It's interesting. I mean, there's so many people that I've interviewed that people we know who are such talents when it comes to different forms of artistry, whether they're musicians or writers or performers of some kind, dancers, etc., who don't end up going into that as a career, partly because of the social cultural pressure. They don't have parents who think that that's a worthy tradition to go into, and they want their kid to be an engineer or a doctor. In your case, it sounds like you had parents who were supportive, but you wanted to go to art school, and there's another thing inhibiting you in where you were growing up, which is there wasn't an art school in Kerman, or you couldn't find one in the city. Is that true?
There was only one art school in Kerman, and that particular school, most of the kids who who were not good in math or science, they were going to that school. And that's why I chose architecture, because it's an art-related subject.
Right. So you go to Tehran, you study architecture. You don't end up leaving Iran until 2008, I think, around then. So you're in your late 20s. And it might seem like an odd question to ask, but there are so many artists that we speak to who, especially women, we know how difficult it is. You can't sing publicly, can't do a recording publicly, or at least you can't sing publicly in a mixed audience. That it is natural to expect that somebody who wants to express their artistry needs to leave Iran at some point, especially, obviously, we're talking about the last 44 years in this Islamic Republic. You choose to stay at first. Tell me what it was like being an artistic soul, somebody who was interested in singing, somebody who was writing and doing the kind of artistic work that you do, but deciding to stay in Iran until you hit that moment in the late 20s when you end up leaving.
So, as you said, my roots are there, and it's very hard to leave those roots. It's very hard to leave the family that you love, the family that they're supportive, to leave your friends. Even though I was in love with singing, but at that moment, I think it was very hard decision to make, to leave Iran. I'm still in love in Iran, and I wish I can go back soon and be there, and I'm sure I'm going to be much more productive if I be closer to those roots.
Are you one of those people who feels guilty that you haven't been there during this time in the last 6 or 7 months? You've been so active in Washington, D.C. Did you want to be on the front lines inside Iran during the uprising?
Yes, and not even that. Sometimes I'm blaming myself. Why didn't I do it when I was there? Not even I'm like, oh, I wish I was there to be in a front line. Sometimes I'm thinking by myself, and I'm blaming myself. Why I wasn't this much brave as these young kids are. Why I love myself so much to not had faith, or I don't know what to say, to fight back. Why I was so scared?
You're not alone. There's an entire generation asking that question of themselves, of ourselves. What is the answer to it?
I don't have any answer to it. I wish I was more brave. I wish me and my generation were fighting back stronger, fighting back more, and not just leave that country for this regime, and not just leave this young generation who are my kids' age to go and fight back. I wish we did something else. I wish we act in other way.
I mean, first of all, the regime was so brutal that any time before the year 2000 is kind of it would be a madness to try and launch an insurrection. We see the student protests that happened in 1999 and the beginnings of that's the very first time anybody challenges the supreme leader or whatever. So people can be forgiven for not going out there and just getting shot in the streets. But do you think in the last 20 years maybe part of it was that every option hadn't been exhausted, in terms of there was still this belief, at least foolishly it turns out, of course, there was still this belief amongst some that there was some way within this regime that through reforming the regime and slowly taking steps, things could change in Iran, and that really need to be proven as a fallacy, as a failure, before the kids of today had the strength to go, it's all or nothing.
Part of the society were thinking like that, as you explained, a part of the society. But a part of the society was thinking opposite. They were thinking, no, this regime is not going to get anywhere. They're brutal. And since this regime is based on ideology, the ideology won't change. So, and all the rules and the laws are based on that ideology. So how is possible to any change happen? There is no way. And at the other side, I think this generation who are in the street, they were born and raised with my generation. And since my generation suffered a lot from the regime, we kind of teach our kids to fight, to not just listen to whatever they say and say, okay, fine, okay, we'll do that. Fight back, answer questions, answer why should we do that. And we are passing all of this education and experience with our kids.
We've heard about the big demonstrations. We've seen them in places like Tehran and Shiraz and Tabriz. What's it been like in Kerman? I know your mom is still there. What does she tell you about the will for change, the desire for change in Kerman?
Yeah, my mom. I'm asking this question to my mom, and she's always said she's seeing a lot of young ladies in the street without hijab, which, as I said before, this is another way of fighting. And the other day she said she was flying to Tehran, and in airplane she said, I can say 85% of the women didn't wear any hijab. And all of these stories that she's telling me gives me more and more hope.
What was it like integrating into life in the United States for you?
It has good things on it and bad things. Again, since I'm far away from my roots, I cannot be as much productive as I want to, as I'm able to. But at the same time, I'm living in a free country. I can do whatever I want to be. So it's a very hard answer. It's a very hard answer.
Do you think of yourself as how do you self-identify now? Are you Iranian American, or are you just Iranian, or are you American? How do you answer that question?
Legally, I'm Iranian American, but deep inside my heart, I'm Iranian.
Well, and that's borne out by the emotions you feel right now. You say you feel it is your duty, and maybe I guess it's our duty, anyone who can, to introduce Iranian art and culture to Iranians, not just non-Iranians, but to Iranians as well. Talk to me about that mission.
Yeah, I think it's not just my responsibility as an artist. It's my responsibility as an Iranian. I mean, this could be any Iranian's responsibility to introduce art, the culture that we have, and because so many of American or Western people, they don't know really about Iran and Iranian. They see whatever they watch in TV or read in newspaper. Some of them thinking Iran is a place who women are covered their faces, or the women are not allowed to drive, or they don't know what's real Iran look like, what's real Iran culture look like. So I'm trying so hard to show them what is real Iran, what are the real Iranian, what are Iranian wants. This regime is not something that Iranian wants. This regime is not something Iranian deserve. Iranian deserve much better than this.
What's an example of what you think of when you say, I want to show them what real Iranian culture is?
So first of all, let's say as an example, I introduce Nowruz to my coworkers. Or I had a concert a couple of weeks ago for Women International Day. Yes. I invited some of my coworkers to come and see how does our music look like. And any way that I can find, I try to find spot to do something about it.
So on that note, you're in Washington, D.C. You've been very active there. There was an event in D.C. recently, a couple of weeks ago. There was this Nowruz gathering, party, celebration that took place that in the aftermath became somewhat controversial because there were a lot of people wondering, or unhappy with the fact that the Biden administration really hasn't been doing that much, but felt that, that it was kind of a superficial demonstration of Nowruz, and some Iranian Americans attended, and that it wasn't really a demonstration of how things could be different. You were invited to that event. You didn't end up going. Had you gone, what would you have wanted to say to the Biden administration?
First of all, I think I'm not sure if in reality it happened or not, but maybe I was going to sing the Saruma Zemestun or some kind of political, song. And for sure, I was going to say something. Hey, President Biden, what are you doing? Our people are suffering 44 years of this regime. My people don't want you to support them because we know that's not going to happen. Because we know this human rights figure is not true, it's not real. We saw it for 44 years, especially in these past 6 months. People just kept saying, hey, West, hey, United States, please support us. And they just verbally did it. They just said, hey, yeah, we're supporting Iranian, we're supporting Iranian revolution. But in reality, they didn't do any acts. We don't want you to support us, but just not deal with this regime. This is the only thing that you're able to do in order to help Iranian. Please stop dealing with them. Please stop dealing with this brutal regime.
And I mean, you're not on the show as a policy analyst, but you are in DC, and you have thought about these things, and you are active there. Why does it seem like the current administration is tone deaf to the idea of not dealing with this regime? In other words, why are they continuing to jockey to do the nuclear deal or whatever?
Because it's just in their beneficiary. Because they do it for themselves. Because imagine. So many Iranians are living outside Iran, and they work, they study in Iran, they work here, they brought their money here. Imagine in free Iran, so many of us want to go back. So they don't want it. At the other hand, they are dealing with Sepah. They are dealing with that regime in order to get a cheaper oil. That's not going to happen anymore. So, and at the same time, United States selling a lot of weapons to United Arab or Israel because of this regime being there. Imagine if the free Iran going to be there, this is not going to happen. So I don't think they don't want the free Iran at all. And this, again, this human rights figure is not true. To me, is absolutely lie.
Do you think it matters who is in the White House? Do you think every American administration is basically going to be the same?
I don't think so, but maybe. I don't know. We have to see. We have to see.
You don't want to go too far in saying what you're implying, but it is definitely, it has been disappointing. But out of curiosity, because you were invited to the event, are you disappointed that more people didn't speak out at the White House? Or
I don't know what happened there. I don't know what exactly happened there. But I think if someone said something, for sure, in this social media, we have see something.
They would have told us. Yeah, exactly. Huh. Yeah. It felt like, yeah. It's a great pleasure to get to talk to you. One of the things that I've seen you in person, when I've seen you speak out, I was in DC and I saw you speak, and I think when you were speaking, you talked about, and maybe I'll ask you about this before I let you go, you talked about the importance not just of unity, but the importance of embracing the diversity of Iran and Iranians. And tell me what you've learned about, maybe it's through your music perhaps, about how you see Iran as a tapestry of different ethnicities and cultures, from Baluchis to Kurds to Azeris to Arabs, etc.
So, Iran is a country with different cultures, different languages, and but during thousand years, Iran was Iran. It was a one country. Even though in past 44 years, the regime wanted to make a division between us. They wanted to say, hey, these are Kurds, these are Arabs, these are Baluch, and they wanted us to not be friends, and they wanted to make us against each other all the time. But now we know that this was the regime plan in order for themselves to stay longer. because they knew if they just keep doing this, they can rule more and more and more. But now we know each of those parts of Iran, each of those cultures, they all love Iran and they all wanted to be united.
Yeah.
And I think here outside of Iran, since Iranian inside Iran cannot speak up for themselves because of all those, I mean, brutal stuff happening over there,
Yeah.
I think this is our responsibility to keep talking about it. In these protests that happening in Washington, D.C. every week, sometimes I'm wearing the Baluchis dress. I'm wearing the Kurdish dress because I'm Baluch, I'm Kurd, I'm Turk, I'm or Azeri, I'm Arab, I'm Iranian, I am a part of all of them, and all of them are part of me. And if you watch my music videos, I'm trying so hard to give this message to Iranian. We have to be united. We have to be together in order to have free Iran, in order to have the country that all of us can live together in peace. We have to be together. We have to support each other. Doesn't matter what is my religious. Doesn't matter what language I am speaking. The thing that is matter is I love Iran and I want free Iran as much as I know someone lives in Baluchistan wants it, as much as someone lives in Azerbaijan wants it. This is something connected us together, and we have to stick to it. We have to keep continuing, doing this in order to get to that moment that we have the free Iran.
Beautifully said. Thank you. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your prose. Thank you for your poems. And it's been a great pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry if I misspelled some.
No, you were great. Your English is fantastic. Mandana Jan, Varan, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jan. Thank you for inviting me.
Khodafis.
Khodafis.
That's Mandana Khazraei in Washington, D.C. This is full time for Rook for today. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, for all things Rook related, you can go to our website, rookmedia.com. rookmedia.com, where you can also support us by becoming a Patreon member. Press the support us button, please. Thanks to the amazing team who put this show together. Talented Anahita, Super Parisa, Smart Pega, Savvy Roham, Arai Meritod, and sound person Louise. Thank you to all of you out there for supporting us and sharing our content. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already on any or all of our platforms. You can find me on Instagram at Jian Ghomeshi. Back on Monday with a feature full interview with Dr. K. Mizunbashi.